Okay, welcome to the video. SIG Guy here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the trigger pull reduction kit by Armory Craft in your classic P-Series pistol. All you need is the kit, a couple tools, classic P-Series pistol. Once you get those things together, come on back and I'll show you just how easy it is to install this kit. Alright, before we get started, a couple kits we're going to need. We need the trigger pull reduction kit by Armory Craft. This comes with a new lighter mainspring. This is the 19-pound blue mainspring. And then we have a purple competition Sear spring, a lighter Sear spring. And then we're going to need some tools, obviously. So my grip panels have the large flat tip screws. So I have the SIG Sauer Armorer's screwdriver there with a large flat tip. I'm going to be using that today. And then I have several tool kits on my website, sigguy.com. This is the one specific for the classic P-Series, the 22X disassembly and reassembly kit. Comes with a special screwdriver that helps remove and install the Sear spring, and then two other punches to help remove pins, and then they act as slave pins when reassembling your classic P-Series. There's a 365 kit, a P320 kit, and then a deluxe kit, which is all three of these kits put together. That way you have one of every tool that I have to offer for all your SIGs. So enough jibber jabber, let's get started and showing you how to install the trigger pull reduction kit in your SIG Sauer pistol. Alright, as you can see, I've skipped forward a little bit. First step is always to make sure you're working on a safe firearm. No round in the chamber, no magazine. Make sure you're totally clear and safe, and then you can disassemble your pistol, remove your slide, remove your grips, and that's where we're at right now. What we're going to be replacing is our Sear spring, which is located right here. And we do not need to push out this pin and let all these pieces and parts fall out. If you got the proper tools, this is very simple and easy to do without disassembling everything. And then we're going to replace our mainspring, which is located right here. So we're going to start here right now. And right now there's an easier way than my previous way of showing people how to do this. And I start by putting a piece of tape right here behind my strut. It's a couple layers of tape actually. So that way we don't scratch up or mar up the finish on your pistol. Previously, we would use a screwdriver and unattach the seat from where it's sitting by pushing up with a screwdriver. There's an easier way to do that, okay? Basically, I'm going to take my screwdriver. I'm going to put it right under here like this. Okay? I'm just going to pry out. I'm going to pry it out. I'm going to hold it with my hands, though, so that way parts don't go flying. Just pry it out like that. You're going to hear it click. And then the tape is going to fall off. And there you go. There's your seat. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove our strut altogether. Don't try to sit there and hold it in place because it's probably going to move on you and you're not going to realize it. And then your trigger's not going to work properly afterwards. So we're just going to remove the whole thing and then I'll show you how to put it back in. If your hammer's not forward at this time, you can pull it back, pull your trigger, and then push your hammer forward. Okay? That's going to give us a lot more room to pull our strut out the back. So there's our strut, and there's our mainspring. Next, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to change out the Sear spring without completely disassembling everything inside here, okay? If it does by chance fall apart because you pushed your pin out too far, there is a video on my YouTube, complete disassembly and reassembly of the classic P-Series pistol, so just refer to that on how to put all this back together. It is no big deal if this all falls apart, okay? With the proper tools, it is very easy, though. I'm going to use my screwdriver that comes in my kit. And it's got the little notch in there. And that little notch is used to grab right onto my Sear spring and pry it out from underneath this pin right here. Okay? So I'm going to grab it with my screwdriver just like that. I'm just going to pry it. It's going to pop. It's going to release itself from that little leg. So now there's no tension there at all. The pin that goes through here, like this, will slide in and out really easy now because there's no pressure from the spring. So with my proper size punch here, I can install it through the side here and start to push out my pin on this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to push my pin out all the way because I don't want my safety lever to fall off, which is right here. So we have our safety lever here. Okay, right here. And then this part here is our Sear, like the outer half of our Sear. The Sear spring is in the middle. Then there's another half of the sear over here, and then our ejector right here. Okay, so I don't want any of these pieces to fall out. So I'm going to push my slave pin to grab, so I can grab onto my pin right here. And I'm just going to pull that pin out far enough to where I can see on this side of the sear spring. I'll see that pin like right here. So it's not holding my sear spring, but it's still holding the sear. Okay, just going to pull that out a little bit. Push in my pin here. So right about there, I can tell that that pin, the end of it is right about in here. Okay, now I'm just going to pull this pin out that way till I can see the edge of it on the other side of the sear spring. And then there'll be nothing capturing the sear spring. I can use the magnet on my screwdriver to grab onto that sear spring, to grab onto the sear spring. It's a pretty good magnet. I'm going to pull out my punch, pull out my sear spring, just like that. So this pin here, you can actually see part of it right on the side here. It's capturing that side of the sear. It's holding my safety lever. This here is holding that side of the sear and my ejector. Okay, now you can grab my competition sear spring. This will be easier to put in with your fingers. The magnet's going to want to stick to everything in here. So I'm just going to set that down inside there, and when it's in the notch, I'm going to push this pin here in and capture the spring. Just like that. See that? And I'm just going to push this pin back in. Just like that. Make sure I'm all the way through. You're going to want to make sure it is countersunk on each side. That way when you install your slide and it comes back in this channel, it doesn't hit that pin. So it is recessed on both sides. Now I'm just going to hook my sear spring back up. I'm going to use the notch to push the leg down and around that post, just like that. And I'll just slide everything up against the side where it's supposed to be. And there you go. That's how easy it is to change our sear spring without completely disassembling everything with the proper tools. So now that we have our sear spring all set, the next thing we're going to show you is how to reassemble the strut with the new mainspring on there. So we're going to remove our old mainspring. We're going to put our Armory Craft 19-pound mainspring on there. We're going to give a little twist as we're pushing up. That'll kind of lock it to the shoulder right there. And let's go over something really quick here, reinstalling this. Most people can get it in there fine, no problem. But then they go to pull their trigger and stuff and does not pass the function check at all. It's because the strut isn't connected to our hammer properly, okay? So our hammer, if you look at the back side of it underneath here, we have a slot that goes around. It goes in the middle of the whole hammer, just about all the way around the bottom, okay? And that is what our strut actually goes into that slot. And if you've ever had the hammer out of your pistol, you'll see there's a pin going across that slot. And that pin is what actually pushes down on our strut, okay? So if you don't have this in there properly, resting up against that pin, and you have it a little bit more forward, where there's nothing going to be able to push down on our strut, okay? And that's why it's not going to work properly. So when I'm reassembling this back edge of my strut, when I'm putting it through the hole here, I'm basically riding it. I'm pulling it out and riding that edge of the frame along this here as I'm pushing it up and in there, okay? So let's demonstrate. We're going to put our strut through the hole. We're going to line up the strut with that slot in the hammer as we're sliding this up and in there, pulling it back towards me, or towards the back of the pistol, and pushing it up in there, okay? And when I think I have it in the right position, what I like to do first is basically push back on my hammer and see if it's pushing my strut down, which it is. Okay, if that's not really moving much, my strut, and it's probably not positioned in the hammer correctly. Just pull it out, do it again. And if you get this all together and it doesn't pass the functions check, it takes 2 seconds to remove this. Try it all over, put it back together. Once you do it 3 or 4 times, you understand how it works, and it's pretty easy to put together after that. So while holding this, our seat's next, I'm going to put that over our spring. And then I'm going to position it just like this. I'm going to put my finger through the frame like that so I can push with my thumb. And then we're just going to ride it off the edge of this anchor point here. It's going to fall down and lock into place. I'm going to hold down on my spring like this so it doesn't come flying out. And then you want your hammer relatively forward here. You don't want it cocked back because it's going to make this way too tight, your spring, and you're going to have a real hard time getting that seat in there. Okay. So I'll line everything up just like that. I'm going to push it just like that. Okay, before I reassemble my whole pistol, I like to kind of do a functions check first to make sure everything's working properly. That way I don't have to disassemble everything again to maybe reposition my strut or whatever's going on. So basically I'm just going to pull my trigger a little bit, make sure my hammer's working, make sure it's pushing down on my strut, which it is. Everything looks good there. Pull back my hammer, release it with the trigger. Don't let it slam forward without your slide on, okay? Hold it with your thumb there. Do that a couple times. Everything's working fine there. So now I'll reinstall my slide, put my grip panels back on, and we will wrap this up. All right, the last thing I do when I always take apart my pistols is do a functions check, okay, before we return any pistol to service. So we're going to do that really quick. We're going to remove our magazine. We're going to lock our slide to the rear. We're going to be pulling our trigger several times. So I want to make sure that nobody snuck around in there. So we're going to physically and visually check to make sure there's no round in the chamber, no magazine. Check our breech face, look away, do the same thing again. Chamber, magazine, breech face, safe firearm, okay. I'm going to install my magazine, release my slide. And then what we're going to do is make sure our magazine falls out of there under its own weight several times, which it does. Everything's working fine there. Now we're going to rack our slide to the rear. I'm going to watch our slide catch. The follower is pushing up on that. It should lock it to the rear once it hits this notch right here, which it does. That works fine. We'll remove our magazine, release our slide, point our muzzle in a safe direction, pull our trigger. That works fine. Holding our trigger, we're going to check our reset. That works fine. That works fine. We're going to do it one more time. We're going to rack our slide. Without covering the muzzle, we're going to pull our slide back, take it out of battery, make sure our trigger does not work. That works fine. That works fine. Everything is performing fine on this pistol. It is ready to be returned to service. All right, and just to finish this up, let's talk about numbers. What is the difference between the factory springs and the Armory Craft trigger pull reduction kit? I'm sure everybody's curious to know. So before I started making this video, I got the Wheeler trigger pull gauge out. I did a 10-pull average with the original springs, double action, single action. And then I put the Armory Craft springs in there and I did 10 pulls again, the average double action and single action. So the data I came up with, this is completely stock, 229. Everything in here is stock. That way when I add different parts to it, you can actually accurately see how much of a difference it's going to make and what to expect if you add it to yours. So factory springs, 10 pull average, double action, 11 pounds, 1.2 ounces. My single action was 3 pounds, 15.2 ounces. And then I put the Armory Craft trigger pull reduction kit in there, 19-pound mainspring, competition purple Sear spring. Double action went down to 9 pounds, 3.0 ounces. And my single action is 3 pounds, 2.8 ounces. So pretty big difference with just 2 springs. There are other kits you can get that make more improvements, and you can start adding triggers, hammers, the super strut. Everything just keeps making these numbers go down and down and down and smooths out your trigger pull altogether. So there you have it. Very easy to install. I have the trigger pull reduction kit as well as other spring kits on my website, sigguy.com. We have the toolkit we used in this video as well as other kits available on sigguy.com. Please check that out, and there's a lot of other stuff on there as well. If you have not liked or subscribed to my YouTube channel, there should be a button right down here. If you could smash that baby, I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to make more videos more frequently, get them on there for you guys. I believe my next video is probably going to be a hammer video, hammer installation. So there you go. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you very much, and have a good day.